kind of thoughts I have. It's like a demon. What if God made me this way?
Writing the show, I didn't think it was ever going to get made because we would never find someone to do it, you know? And then Josh's audition came in from Berlin, and one of our producers, Nina Jacobson, had been working with him on the Hunger Games, and she's like, I'm telling you, this is the guy. And there's a vulnerability to him that no other actor could bring, you know? And I think actors can play violence, they can play anger and rage, and but you can't, like, there's something about a vulnerability here. If we didn't have that vulnerability, we couldn't humanize him. And I think one thing I feel good about that we've done in the show is we've humanized him, you know, we've dimensionalized him. And Josh's performance, you know, I've been lucky to work with some incredible actors, but I don't know that I've ever seen anyone take a role like this and just elevate it. You know, he really is magnificent.
I used to play football in high school, and I was a linebacker and I was a guard, so I never had to catch a ball in my life. And I remember there being like a day or two where I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna play the football. Like, I am a football player. I'm gonna do it. Man, I got shut up so fast. I got knocked around like crazy that day. I was like, this is pretty hard, actually. Who knew?
We worked really hard on getting the jailhouse tapes where we could listen to him. You know, we could actually hear his voice. It was like he was coming back from the dead. You know, he would even talk. You could hear him talking to his family, to his friends. This is while he's awaiting trial, and saying even things like, you know, while I had it all and I was getting all this money, I was empty inside.
A lot of the stuff that we know of is the public appearances and his public persona. There's a couple of his calls from prison that are public record, and how his tone and disposition changes depending on who he's talking to is very interesting data as well. So, you know, you take all those factors, you kind of just have to combine them all together, figure out what's important and what's useful for what circumstance in the plot, and kind of emphasize that for that particular. It was a very, very interesting challenge.
There's a boyishness in him. He was a boy at a man's table so much in his life. I mean, he was the youngest, you know, he's born into this enormous body. So what else can you be? But, like, you know, he was a boy when he went to college, and he was a boy on a man's team in the NFL, and he died at 27.
What it means to take a kid like that and throw him into that kind of privilege, that kind of power and access, but also not hold him accountable for his actions. What would happen if he didn't go to school at that age and finished high school? What would happen if, when he got in trouble, he actually got penalized and wasn't allowed to play and had to get his act together in order to play football, as opposed to he's so good that people would rather just try to get around the problem than address the problem. And so we wanted to look at those inflection points. And there are many of them throughout the series where things might have gone a different way, but not in such a way that we let Aaron off the hook. Because at the end of the day, we're all responsible for our actions.
A part of the story that I really, really like is when he gets in a fight with a bartender, and then he goes and talks to a lawyer, and the lawyer takes care of it for him. And there's this look on his face that was edited so well, like that you just know that he is internalizing that he got away with something. So it's sort of like several different things like that happen throughout the show, that he's not going to unlearn that lesson. That's something that he's going to carry with him.
But really what we wanted to go back and look at is Aaron Hernandez was not born a murderer. He was not born a sociopath. He was at one point this sweet little boy with a preternatural talent for football and born into a body that our culture really valorizes and turns into something else. And to look at the system that body and that boy was put into and ask the question, at what point does his personal responsibility take over? And at what cost? This love that we all have for football comes at what cost?
He had a legacy of violence in his family. And you know, and he was struggling with a lot of demons and a lot of secrets, and you know, most of all about his who he was. And so you end up with all this, and the drug use and all that, it just becomes a very complex stew. And I think that's what we tried to do, so that we could leave it to the audience to sort of decide, how do you feel about him now,
We'll find out.
I guess so, man. I don't know.
It's cool. It's exciting. Yeah. I'm really stoked to be part of this, and to I'm a big fan of Tim Tebow, and to get to portray him and to learn more about his life. It was really fun. It's exciting.
Yeah.
You get to see more of Tim off the field and his relationship with Aaron, because that's what ultimately had the largest impact in both their lives, was the impact of their relationship off the field, and how faith and Christianity and Tebow trying to bring Aaron into that, and how ultimately that does or does not impact his life.
We had such an amazing research team to help us out and figure out who our characters are. But, not only that, it's like putting yourself into it, and making the choices as an actor to make sure this person sounds genuine and real, and her choices of, whether she's leaning on his shoulder or like touching him or whatever the case may be, like, what do you feel like? And I mean, again, this is a real person and she's still here, so I was just trying to do her justice, and we do an amazing job at really showing a different perspective to the audience of who she is. And again, in the media, they really they really went at her, in my opinion, unfairly. And this way, we're showing how strong she was and having some empathy for her.
I had done a lot of research. I had read 2 or 3 books on Bill. There's a ton of information out there on Belichick. And I was a football newbie. I could count on one hand the amount of football games I had seen in my life before playing like the greatest football mind in modern times. So I really I did my homework. You emerge from the hair and makeup table, it's hard not to feel just like the guy. And then I just tried to let it rip once we got out there, and hope that my work and my research and watching a ton of reels and footage, along with this incredible transformation that they helped me to achieve.
That's awesome.
Yeah.